Dubious ones, welcome back to another Ultra Pro Wrestling video. Today is really important for you guys to give them your feedback to make this the greatest wrestling game ever. But before we get into that, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, as if we can get to 2,000 subscribers by the launch of WWE 2K24, I'll be giving you guys away 3 copies of the game. So hit that sub button and share this video with your friends, like, comment, all that good stuff. But let's get into it. So Ultra Pro Wrestling posted earlier today, what storylines from wrestling history should we recreate in our game? So this tells me that the single player campaign isn't set in stone as far as what they've picked and what little pieces we're going to get. So this is an exciting opportunity, if you're going to be playing this game, to be able to vote on what stories you want to see throughout all of wrestling history, from the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, that you want to see come to Ultra Pro Wrestling. So let's get into some of the responses. One of mine here, I essentially want to play through the entire wrestling landscape from the 90s into the early 2000s in the West. I don't know enough of what was going on in Japan at the time, Mexico, UK, and all that, but I definitely want to see everything from WWF, WCW, and ECW. I expanded on that, the entire Attitude Era, from the double turn from Bret and Austin, all to the way to the culmination of the Invasion storyline. But I suggested maybe they do the Invasion storyline a little bit better than WWE did, where you can have proper WCW guys who were, obviously still getting paid once WCW went out of business. So you could have guys like Goldberg, Sting, the NWO represented. And then, the entire rise of and fall of WCW, all the way from the NWO, like once WCW got popular with the Nitro starting, all the way to when Shane McMahon showed up on the screen, and it was the end of WCW. Jay Barnacle's here. Shoutouts to him, supporter of the channel. He suggested the Monday Night War as well. And for me, definitely very important gang and faction storylines for sure. Like the Hart Foundation had an amazing storyline back in the 90s where they were doing like a Canada versus USA, but it was more of a USA versus the world storyline, where everywhere the Hart Foundation went, all over the world, they were the biggest baby faces in the world because Bret Hart was loved and renowned worldwide, everywhere except the States. And he turned on the States as the fans had turned on him. It started with Austin and then Shawn Michaels and DX. And it was an amazing story that they had, that every week they would go to like an American city, and then the next week of Raw would be like in Canada, or the next week of Raw would be in the UK or somewhere else. And it's just like the reactions Bret was getting worldwide and everywhere outside of the US, biggest babyface in the company. As soon as he come to the United States, he was the biggest heel in the company. And it was such an incredible thing to watch in real time. During my childhood, that was like the greatest storyline that had ever been done. So I definitely would like to see that recreated, along with the DX storylines, Nation of Domination storylines, the Corporation, the Ministry of Darkness, the Corporate Ministry, and then on the WCW side, all of the NWO storylines, the Civil War with the NWO and the NWO Wolfpack, the LWO, Ravens Flock, and all that stuff was absolute gold, and I think needs to be included in this game. Kenny Baum, again, shoutouts to Kenny. He obviously wants to see the Ministry of Darkness relived, the crucifixion of Austin, all that kind of stuff. Amazing stuff. I want to see it as well. As you saw in the thumbnail of this video, I did include this as well. And then as well as I want to see the ECW and their biggest moments. The rise of Rob Van Dam, my favorite wrestler of all time. Sabu and his incredible feuds with, that he had in the ECW. His feuds with Taz. Feuds that Taz had with Shane Douglas. All of Raven from when he was first in ECW to his giant return when he won the tag titles. That to me was one of the biggest moments ever in ECW history, when they had that TV deal on TNN every Friday night. It was one of the most exciting parts of my fandom, was when Raven returned from WCW after the days of Raven's Flock and helped, as the Dudley Boys were leaving for WWF. At the time, as the tag champions, they were fighting Tommy Dreamer 2-on-1. Tommy Dreamer was the last man left to help, keep the titles in ECW and stand up for ECW. And then at the end of the match, you just had Raven just get into the ring, huge giant reaction, hits the even flow DDT, wins the tag titles for them. Amazing moment. I popped so hard when I watched it live. It was incredible. So I definitely want to see that recreated in game. Would be so huge. And you could have that character that was Raven's Flock in the WCW days, and as the years progress, you get to see him transition, and when you're playing as that character, you go into the other promotion, which is, that represents ECW, and get to have that same character and have those moments. Oh, it would be beautiful storytelling. So I would love to see that. And of course, who can forget the incredible feuds that Mike Awesome had with Masato Tanaka? Bam Bam had a wonderful run in ECW, like when Taz choked him out and they went through the stage, like the ring ramp there. Incredible moments like that I want recreated in this game. Would be huge for me. Biggest part of my fandom was obviously WWF, WCW, and ECW, in that like 95 to like 2002 era was the best time in wrestling history for me and my fandom. So I definitely want to see that represented. But we also want to get into the golden era. The rise of Hulk Hogan and WrestleMania and the Macho Man Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior, and all the way through up until we got to the new generation of the Shawn Michaels and the Bret Hart in the early 90s. But to start in the game, we're going to be started with the 80s side of the career. So I definitely want to see the whole rise of WWF and WrestleMania and, Hulkamania and Andre the Giant and Ultimate Warrior, the Million Dollar Man, the tournament for the gold when Randy Savage won, and then the clash between Hogan and Savage. I want all that represented. That'd be incredible. Now, what I don't know so much on the 80s side, because again, I was a little kid, and I was like 3 years old, 4 years old when the 80s ended, so I didn't know a lot of what was going on in wrestling outside of WWF fandom. So the NWA Crockett side, with like the rise of Ric Flair, the rise of Dusty Rhodes. Again, I'm less familiar with the side of history, but it would be so cool to learn it and live it via Ultra Pro Wrestling. I think that would be really cool. I don't know what was going on in Japan at the time, or the UK, or anywhere else. So for me, I would love to learn wrestling history of throughout the world through this game. And in the 80s side of the career, I think that would be super cool. But let's see what some of you guys had to say. Taker versus Kane feud. We've got the Love the Riho guys sign. Okay, so we've got the Nation of Domination and the Mega Powers exploding. Never Trust a Snake storyline. The Montreal Screwjob. The Curtain Call. Have the brand wars with the Monday Night Wars. Have an actual invasion happen between the two competing companies. So like making up some original storylines there. That all that stuff sounds like awesome. The corporation, the authorities, stopping the the good guys, NWO style faction takeovers. So a lot of this is Attitude Era centric, but of course we want to get some of the 80s suggestions out there for them, as that's what's going to come out in the game at launch. Whereas we're going to get the 90s story as a DLC, the 90s side of the career mode later. But they need your feedback. So anything you want to leave as feedback here, I think is super, super important. Get your voices heard by going, and I will leave a link to this tweet in the description down below for you guys to give them your responses. But they want to know what stories we want recreated in the game. And if we want this game to be the greatest wrestling game of all time and be what it could be, the storyline is going to, and the career mode is going to be a huge, huge part of that. So we really want to give them, everything we want to see, because we can't complain that our favorite storyline wasn't in there if we don't suggest it to them. You know what I mean? And they're going to be taking our suggestions and implementing what they can. So they want your votes now. So please go check them out. Obviously, this tweet has 19,000 views right now. I'm putting it up there. It went up earlier today. I just wanted to spotlight this for you guys and give you my thoughts on some of my favorite storylines that I would like to see come to the game. Obviously, the rise of RVD and the rise of Bret Hart, two of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I want to see that. The rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rise of the entire Attitude Era, The Rock, the Ministry, the Corporate Ministry, the Nation of Domination, all that stuff. The gang feuds. To me, that was all money. The Hart Foundation, USA versus Canada, all those storylines are golden. WCW with the NWO Wolfpack, Civil War, all that stuff, amazing stuff. Goldberg's rise to stardom, Sting and the whole Crow gimmick and the whole year build to that match at Starrcade with Hogan. I want all that stuff in there. ECW, I want to see Taz versus Sabu, Taz versus Shane Douglas, RVD against Jerry Lynn, RVD, with a 2-year TV title reign, doing the Van Terminator for the first time, on Scotty Riggs, everything else, just like, there's my whole fandom, in that 6-year period of the 90s, just some of the greatest wrestling storylines of all time. But yeah, please go tweet them, give them your suggestions, let them know what you want to see from this game so we can help turn this into the greatest pro wrestling game of all time. That's going to do it for this one. Dubious ones, don't forget to comment down below what you would like to see, but most importantly, go over to this tweet and tweet it to them and tell them directly. But I want to hear from you guys as well. What were some of your favorite storylines that you would like to see in this game? Comment down below, leave a like on the video, and obviously subscribe for your chance to win a copy of WWE 2K24. And we will catch you in the next one. Peace.